Looks like we have a battle on our hands for who's going to be the next DNC chair. It looks like it's either going to be Representative Keith Ellison from Minnesota, or Howard Dean, who was the DNC chair when President Obama was elected. And he was the chair between 2005 and 2009. We're going to start with Howard Dean first because there is some very interesting things there about his running for the DNC chair and how he's not the same person that he was during 2005 and 2009 when he was the DNC chair of the 50-state strategy. So we'll start there and see what he's been up to since he was the DNC chair. And this is an article from The Intercept and Lee Fang back from in January of this year. And at the time, Howard Dean was criticizing Bernie Sanders for pushing for a single-payer health care plan, and here's exactly why. For the past few years, Howard Dean has been a lobbyist for the Denton Public Policy and Regulation, and has also been a strategic guitar for McKenna, Long, and Aldridge. Clients are healthcare and big pharma, and of course they are against single payer. So Howard Dean, since he left the DNC, has completely switched his progressive leanings and has gone completely corporate. There's just no way around it. He's a lobbyist. He's turned against all of his previous progressive ideals, and now is a corporate. As a corporate pawn, he was always supportive of Hillary Clinton. He's not going to push the same strategy that he was back in 2005 when he was a progressive. He was a progressive candidate back then. He was a progressive voice back then. He was for Medicare for all back then. But not anymore. And that is why when he announced, it probably wasn't on his own volition. He probably had some pushing from his clients, other Democratic donors who want the establishment to retain power within the party. But let's not completely just talk about the negatives of Howard Dean. He did some very good things when he was the DNC chair, again, between 2005 and 2009. He wanted to implement a 50-state strategy. It wasn't just enough to him to concentrate in Democratic states that were Democratic strongholds. He wanted the Democratic Party and the DNC itself to help put money into campaigns across the country. And he was the DNC chair when we had President Obama elected. And there was a sweep in the Congress and then the House and the Senate that gave President Obama a supermajority, which unfortunately, as many people know, he did not use to push the Affordable Care Act to its extent and get Medicare for all, which would have a much cheaper healthcare prices right now than what we are dealing with today. Again, there's positives to that piece of legislation. There's a lot more people covered. It eliminated pre-existing conditions from being an elimination to getting healthcare, and it's allowing students to stay on, or children to stay on their parents' healthcare until the age of 26. So there's some good things that happened there. It just did not do enough to help control prices from private companies. And it's also enforces that and gives a mandate that individuals must get health care through private entities. It's problematic. And what happened with Howard Dean is Jordan Sheridan recently pointed out on a TYT Plus videos that President Obama worked with Clinton and pushed out Howard Dean, fired him from the DNC chairman position in favor of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who, again, they tied money into the Obama Victory Fund, and that kind of gutted the DNC's funding. It helped President Obama pay off his debt and all these other different things that if you want more information about that, you can check out George Sheridan's video. It's very in-depth, and he had sources giving this information, and it's definitely a very trustworthy source. So let's move over to Keith Ellison, who he's basically running against. And Keith Ellison made his nomination official this past Monday. And he was previously first pushed forward by Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, who was stating that he's the right person for the job. We want to have a progressive voice, and this is also very interesting that Bernie Sanders is doing this, because I'm going to play about a minute and a half clip from Freudian slip there, from Bernie Sanders' interview with Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks from his past March, and he says how he wanted to rebuild the Democratic Party. And this is very interesting, and this is why Keith Ellison, being a DNC chair, could be the first step in what Bernie Sanders was planning. Take a listen.
If I can't make it, and we're going to try as hard as we can till the last vote is cast, we want to completely revitalize the Democratic Party and make it a party of the people rather than just one of large campaign contributors.
Now, normally politicians would ask for something for them, cabinet post, et cetera. But I'm going to assume that whether you are going to ask for that or not, I don't know, and you wouldn't say here. Anyway, let's assume for the moment of being that you're not going to ask for that. If you're going to ask for policy positions, as you just indicated, what are the policy positions that you would want?
Okay. I want Secretary Clinton, if she's the nominee, to come out for a Medicare for all, single-payer health care system. I want $15 an hour as a minimum wage. I want to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. Flint, Michigan is not the only community in America that doesn't have safe drinking water. Our roads, bridges, rail system is in disrepair. I want a vigorous effort to address climate change. I am very worried. I talk to these scientists. This planet is in serious danger, and you can't cuddle up to the fossil fuel industry. You got to take them on. And also, what is resonating, and I believe very important, making public colleges and universities tuition-free, Wall Street tax on speculation to pay for that, ending all these corporate loopholes. Those are some of the demands we make.
And the first start of that could be Keith Ellison as DNC chair and helping to rebuild the Democratic Party from the ground up, basically. Because after Hillary Clinton's defeat at the hands of Donald Trump, the establishment, the third way Democrats, neoliberalism on the left, well, actually, neoliberalism is shared by the left and the right, is definitely on its heels, and the Democrat Party is primed to be taken over by progressives, if they are willing to fight for it. And this is what Keith Ellison had to say on Monday, and this is from NBC News, and I quote, "It is not enough for Democrats to ask voters for voter support every 2 years. We must be with them through every lost paycheck, every tuition hike, and every time they are victims of a hate crime." And he continues, "When voters know what Democrats stand for, we can improve the lives of all Americans, no matter their race, religion, or sexual orientation. To do that, we must begin the rebuilding process now." And he also continued, and he gave some criticism to the Democratic Party. "This election cycle, we did not motivate enough people to the ballot box. We must invest in and empower our state and local parties by creating effective field operations, an enhanced and advanced voter file, and a culture of collaboration between candidates at every level. Let's put the voters first." And that's Keith Ellison. And since then, he's already has support from, of course, Bernie Sanders. Earlier today, Elizabeth Warren came out in support for him as well. Outgoing Senator from Nevada, Harry Reid, gave him his support. Even the now Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has thrown Keith Ellison his support. So it looks like this is a fight that the establishment isn't going to try to have. And, of course, there's already outlets like Fox News attacking Keith Ellison, claiming he has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and I believe they said the Nation of Islam, and that he is somehow a radical because he's a Muslim. Let's take a look at Keith Ellison factually. He is the first congressman. He's the first congressman elected to the United States House that is a Muslim. And he was the second congressman to endorse Senator Sanders behind fellow pro-progressive caucus co-chair Representative Raul Grijalva from Arizona in October 2015. Again, he's in Congress in Minnesota and has been since 2007. And he was even arrested in 2009 for protesting Sudan and their policies in Darfur and the human rights violations that are going on there. I would definitely encourage anyone to read on that issue as well. And he has a strong progressive voting record. He's for getting money out of politics. He was among top name surrogates for Bernie Sanders, among Tulsi Gabbard, Nina Turner, Killer Mike. So there's this definitely, he has a progressive track record, and individuals who will look at him without claiming that all Muslims are terrorists and scary will see that he's a normal human being that if you listen to what he's saying, a lot of people will agree with. So it is very interesting to see what's going to happen from here. Is Keith Ellison going to be able to take control over the DNC, or are they going to give it back to Howard Dean, who now has his hands firmly inserted in the establishment's pockets and will give the establishment what they want? And he basically, at this point, will represent no change. Keith Ellison will represent a huge change within the DNC. A huge change. Now that Senator Sanders and Elizabeth Warren both have Democratic leadership positions within the Senate, this could be a step forward in the right direction as far as getting the progressive movement moving forward. If that's what, and of course, if progressive voters want to fight for that, now is their chance. There are steps moving forward in rebuilding the Democratic Party. Does it mean it's going to be easy? The establishment definitely is not going to give that fight up. But we're definitely now seeing the seeds of change within the Democratic Party, and I'll definitely be here to report on that.